I've always loved winter. Maybe because I'm a real contrarian at heart. You're not supposed to like winter. Everything is dead and it's dark and cold, but I love a challenge. I find winter low stakes and low pressure, a season of acceptance, finding ways to spend time outdoors and embrace the cold, the way the bite of the wind can feel so alive, the way snow and ice sparkle, the way everything goes still. The magic of winter can be found in simple things, cozying up by the fire with a snowy book, baking with seasonal citrus fruits, a pair of fuzzy socks, a warm drink.
Time to decorate for winter. I made a bunch of different things. My theme that I'm going for is snowflakes and stars, which I know is pretty revolutionary, never been done before, jaw-dropping, show-stopping. It's classic for a reason, you know? At some point last year, I needed a little bit of stuffing to go into a pot holder that I made, and I ordered this. Not on purpose. But now that I have it, I feel like it's the perfect opportunity to give myself a winter wonderland kitchen. Now, a fun fact about me is that I don't do any of the cooking in this apartment. I have not so much as made a piece of toast. But this year, I bravely, generously agreed to cook one meal a week. So I'm gonna be in here a little bit more at the stove, you know, and I think I need a beautiful winter landscape to look at. I also saw this picture on Pinterest and I thought I must have that. That must be my window. So I made some ballet girlies. These are really easy to make. I just printed out templates of ballet dancers and then gave her a doily skirt. Made some snowflakes for the windows, and with the extra doilies made some hanging snowflakes. For Christmas, I got these beautiful paper rolled snowflakes. So I should have a good amount of snowflakes. I'm gonna add some snow here, maybe some twinkly lights and other inspiring snowscape. Let's go. Because winter is such a dry, cold season, I wanted to try a DIY body product. I'm a little bit skeptical about self-care as a practice, I have to say. I recognize that it was started by the Black Panther Party in the 70s, and like most political social movements, became a product you can buy at Sephora. So I just question to what extent it's just the drug of consumption that is driving us, and to what extent it's actually a practice that does anything. However, I showered the other morning, which I don't normally do. I never shower in the morning, and I decided to put on perfume after, which I never do, and it changed my whole day. I felt so much more productive, I felt so much more competent and energized and just in a better mood. So I'm still hesitant to buy from mass-produced beauty care companies that test things on animals and make things in countries without very little regulation and very good employee care. But I did get some oils, and I'm gonna make just a little hair oil. One of my New Year's resolutions is to have a nighttime routine. Currently, my nighttime routine is putting on Mike's Mike Unhinged recap of Pretty Little Liars and then scrolling on Depop till I fall asleep. And it's not great. So I'm not looking for any results. I'm just looking to feel like kind of a fancy lady when I do my new nighttime routine, which is going to involve reading by candlelight and having a warm drink and no screens and putting a little hair oil in. It's a very simple recipe. I got a little intimidated. Paradox of choice these days. I googled DIY body product recipes, and then it's just endless recommendations, endless criticisms of those recommendations. I would find a thing, and then people on Reddit would be like, you can't do that at home. This is the simplest, most straightforward thing I could find. I'm gonna try it out. I'm gonna see how it goes. It's mid-January, and I have yet to implement this routine, but I think once I get the hair oil, it's gonna happen. So I thought I would share some baby names that I love but won't be using. No, I'm kidding. So I thought I would share some of my favorite movies to watch in winter. These are not holiday films, these are just things I think are seasonally appropriate, maybe a little bit cold, a little bit snowy, a little bit sad and melancholy, but hopefully inspiring. The first movie is Metropolitan. This is a 1990s film about young Upper East Side kids, socialite types, home for Christmas break, and it's debutante season, and they befriend a middle-class kid. So this is basically Gossip Girl if Gossip Girl was good and smart and funny. It's set in Manhattan, obviously, and it's a great winter in New York City movie. It takes place almost entirely after 11 p.m. It's a lot of them like walking the city at night, bouncing between different malls, great Manhattan apartments, great like 90s party dresses. Just a really fun setting. The characters are pretty absurd, but the actors give very natural performances, and I really like the way that it works. I don't think any of these actors went on to have a career. They feel very like student film in their performance, and it was a very low budget production. It was supposed to be a period piece, but they didn't have the budget for it. So it has kind of like an old-timey vibe, but no clear period. It also has a real Jane Austen feel. It's very satirical and witty about the social functionings of the upper class. So if you like rich people aesthetics, but social commentary with maybe a little more heft to it, a bit more integrity than Gossip Girl, well then this is the movie for you. The next movie is The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. This is a 1960s French musical romantic drama. There's not a ton of plot to it. Basically, these two young, beautiful people fall in love and then are tragically parted when he is drafted to fight in the war. It's entirely sung through, so I did not think I was going to like this because I do not like operas, but I really enjoyed this. The colors are fantastic. This is maybe the most aesthetic movie I've ever seen. This had to have been the blueprint for Wes Anderson and Barbie and La La Land. I feel like this is a movie that aesthetically is just constantly being referenced because it is absolutely stunning. It's set in a coastal town in Normandy, so it's not specifically winter. It also takes place over a period of like 6 years, but the winter scenes are so beautiful. And just in general, this is such a cozy, magical, colorful watch. It's also really sad. It's a pretty sad movie, but it's so pretty. Moonstruck is a 1980s romantic comedy starring Cher and Nick Cage. I would argue it's the best romantic comedy. It's also just like a perfect movie. It's so weird and funny and charming and magical and a crazy, ridiculous bit that it's totally in on, but also successfully pulls off as a emotionally resonant and compelling film, which is so hard to do. Cher, I mean, she's iconic. Nick Cage is really well balanced. I think it captures a lot of his eccentricities. My mom just taught me how to pronounce that correctly. His like natural charisma, which turns out he does have. He's kind of handsome in this, and by kind of I mean very. And that is maybe an adjustment, maybe a welcome, familiar feeling for you, depending on where you land on that. But the plot of Moonstruck, I forgot to say, basically Cher is engaged to this guy. He's got to go out of town, so she falls in love with his brother. Again, a great New York City winter movie. Really fun, playful. Whatever people think When Harry Met Sally is doing, this movie's actually doing. And When Harry Met Sally is just annoying me. Who ever wanted to sleep with Billy Crystal? Brief Encounter is a 1940s British romantic drama. So as you can guess, it's very repressed. It's very slow. It's very pining and yearning. And it's wonderful. I love the performances in this movie. They're so natural and understated. No shots at the actors in this movie, but they're not like classically Hollywood beautiful. I think a lot of romantic dramas just rely on the lead actors being sculpted by the gods, and these just feel like regular people who find a really extraordinary connection. It's about a lonely, isolated housewife who encounters an acquaintance on the train platform, and they kind of hit it off and start hanging out and having this really deep emotional connection form. They basically have an emotional fail. In a sense. They basically have an emotional affair, but it's British, so they kind of generally approach the possibility that they are people who have feelings, but they don't get too crazy. They don't talk about them. It's also set in winter. It has this steamy train stations and long walks and talks and bundled up, and it's just really cozy and really sad, but in a way that feels really good. It's an adaptation of a one-act play, and it really feels like it. It's really a lot of dialogue and just two people walking around, getting to know each other and feeling things they've never felt before. What is this feeling? So sudden and new. This is a bit random, but I have been watching Bud Greenspan's Olympics series on the Criterion channel. If you are a Criterion subscriber, you will have access to numerous documentaries about the Olympics. And I put on the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics documentary the other night, and let me tell you, I went from maybe a 2 to a 10 within the first 30 seconds of this movie in terms of my feelings about the fact that it is winter and it is dark, it is cold. I think winter sports are maybe the greatest magic of winter, and the Olympics are one of my favorite things to exist in this world. Now, these documentaries are not hard-hitting, they are not thought-provoking, they are really just like propaganda pieces for the Olympics, but it worked on me. Just watching people do the bobsled and the cross-country skiing and the figure skating and the thing with the skeleton. I love the skeleton. Speed skating, just catching a glimpse of Apollo Ono, you know what I mean? These beautiful, picturesque winter villas in like Lillehammer and Torino, and just true snowstorms and true winter sports being performed in snowy settings. It just made me so happy about winter, which sometimes it can be hard. He uses a lot of footage from the games themselves, but he also does interviews with athletes and kind of puts together different powerful stories about glory and heroics from the Olympics, which I'm a little bit skeptical of. I don't really think I can ever be convinced that risking your life after multiple organ failure to ski one more time is actually worth it. But when he does the slow-mo at the end and the person wins gold and they're sobbing and their family's got the flags, like it's good. There's also something very nostalgic about it. I grew up watching the Olympics, but also I feel like sports coverage has changed a lot, even in like the last 10 years. And watching sports coverage from like 2002 or 1994 just takes me back. I wasn't alive in 1994. It's cozy, and it makes me feel like I'm 12 and staying up past my bedtime to watch the closing ceremonies. And then I just want to shout out 2 TV shows. One is the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which I've talked about because they have a wonderful Christmas special. But I would recommend the show just generally for winter. It's set in Minnesota, so there's all these references to snow and blizzards and snowstorms. They're like always getting snowed in. It is a sitcom, so they don't really go outside. But a really cozy, lovely, wonderful, fun show. Not entirely timeless, not everything about it ages well, but still a really interesting piece of media about working women in the 70s and women being on their own. It's a show that's over 50 years old now, and it still feels fresh and human and funny, and I think that's a real achievement, and it laid the groundwork for a lot of TV that came after, TV that had women as the star. Great 70s fashion, great 70s color, wacky 70s apartment decor, just a pure delight. The other show I want to mention is Dickinson. The fact that it only got 3 seasons is kind of ruining my life. It is my beloved TV show. I think it maybe had a bit of a moment when it was airing 4 or 5 years ago now, but it never really took off the way that I thought it should. It is a comedy, somewhat drama about Emily Dickinson, so set in the 19th century. Haley Steinfeld plays Emily Dickinson, and she is fantastic in this. This made me an massive Haley Steinfeld fan. Just the setting, the scenery, the costumes, all of that is the exact kind of world I want to live in winter, which is like beautiful New England 19th century tableaus. But it's also a really smart show. It's written with modern dialogue, which does not bother me at all, and has other like anachronisms, but I think it's done with intention, and it generally does a really good job of setting the past against the present. I think oftentimes period dramas focus so heavily on like the romanticization and how much more like poetic the past was, but also want the viewer to feel like we've made all of this progress and all of these improvements. So like, yes, the dresses are beautiful, but everybody was sexist back then, and it's like, yeah, and they are now. Like, what's the point? But Dickinson, I think, is really smart in contextualizing the present through the past and just treating the past as like a time that existed as our time also is just a time that exists, and a way to think about those people and those issues as people and issues of today. And I think by showing those parallels, you can kind of avoid the pitfalls of these binaries of good and bad, and who was good in the past and who was bad, and really encourages the viewer to think critically about the present and issues of the present as something more complicated than good and bad or positive and negative. And also just a really interesting meditation on what it means to like retell somebody's life, especially a woman's life from 200 years ago, what it means to idolize somebody that none of us knew, and collect letters and diaries and kind of piece together the story of what we think this person's life looked like and what this person's life meant and how they felt about their life while they lived it. I could just talk about this show for hours. It's brilliant. Iowa Debris, who you probably are familiar with, wrote for it, so you know it's very funny and just tongue-in-cheek and wacky and delightful and super fun, and if you haven't seen it, you must watch it. Well, those are my winter recommendations. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please let me know what you like to watch this time of year. If you've seen any of the things that I talked about, if you liked them, if you hated them, I still love to hear it. And thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you are finding magic this winter. Should probably take my Christmas tree down now, but I don't know if I'm ready. Jingle bells, so this will be ready.